Hello, in this video, I'm going to go over CIS27 lab for Unit 11. Let me jump onto my classroom desktop. So in this lab, we're going to learn how to perform forensic using Autopsy. And we are going to do user rights assignment with Windows 10 virtual machine. So in the first part, we are going to use Windows 10 VM. This is provided through the USB that I have in class. So you just need to attach your USB and copy and paste it onto your desktop. Then you are going to, here is my desktop folder, and then open up my VirtualBox. So we would be able to find that by just opening up the app like this. And we're going to click add, go to where we have our virtual machine, which is on our desktop, and load our VBox file, which I have here, and I have my virtual machine running. Then once our virtual machine is ran, then we would log in, and the login information is provided in part A. In part B, we are going to use Autopsy. And Autopsy allows you to perform dead analysis or live analysis. Dead analysis is when we have a capture of a system that's already been shut down. We would be able to take its image and be able to examine it. Live analysis is when we examine the system while it's running. And in most cases, we want to capture the image of that system while it's running and then evaluate the image, which is a copy of it, instead of directly accessing it, because you can modify the state of the system and the files. So the first part is to go and download Autopsy. For Microsoft Edge, the first time that you use it, you have to go through the installation process. It's going to prompt you to download and install Microsoft Edge. So you need to do that and making sure. So that is a fake anti-malware thing from the website. The second part is to download from SoundForge. So when you do this, the best thing to do is number one, get a USB and plug it in. Let me dismount my USB from my system. So on the outside, what I'll do is I can use my host computer and I would click this. It's going to take me to this page. I'm going to click this link to download the zip. When you do this, if you're using the computer from school, you need to make sure that you enable or save as. So you would allow this. So make sure that we do save as. As you can see that I have that here. And when you do that, it's going to put it onto the downloads file here. Once you have downloaded this, you can copy and then put it onto your USB. So once I have extracted, I copy and paste it onto my USB. This is containing the image that we're going to examine using Autopsy. Then what we'll do is we're going to go back to our virtual machine and we're going to mount our USB. So go to Devices, USB, and click on your USB name. Mine happens to be the Silicon Power. So click that. And it should pop up with the USB, as you can see here. Then I would open up my File Explorer and I would go into my USB and I can copy this or drag this onto my desktop. Recall that this is a zip file, so we need to right click, extract all, and it's going to give you the extracted folder. Once that happens, I'm going to go ahead and open up my Autopsy downloads. So the first part of the lab is to download Autopsy, and you can simply go into your virtual machine here, open up Microsoft Edge after you install and configure it. And then for this part, we can just do Autopsy download. It's going to take you to this page. And you want to download the version for Windows, which is what you click this button. Once you click this button, we want to click Save. And it's going to take a few seconds to get the download down. It's going to come down as an MSI file, which is the Microsoft installation file. So as we click Save, it's going to put it into the Downloads folder. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my Downloads folder. So here's my Autopsy installation file that I had earlier. You just double click this and run the installation. Everything is default is fine. It's going to put the desktop icon on your desktop. So after we install the Autopsy and had downloaded our image, we're going to go ahead and open up Autopsy. This is going to take a few seconds to load. It's really important that you have your virtual machine at least 8 GB of RAM and full core before you boot your virtual machine, because most of the forensic software tends to be resource heavy. So that means that it needs processing power and RAM for its application. So I would recommend using at least 8 GB of RAM or higher. When we open up Autopsy, we're going to click the new case. And here we just put in our case information. So this is the first case we're going to do. So we're going to do case 0001. And we want to make a folder for this. So you can just click create a new folder right here. And we can name it as I did here. So case 001 investigating NTFS folder. Once we created that, we would go ahead and select it. And then we can go next. We would put down the case number. So my first case is 001, my full name, and ideally you would put in your phone, your email, and notes, like the facility that you're investigating or the system information. Then we're going to click finish. And it's going to create the case database. This is running Java. So if your virtual machine supports that, otherwise you're going to have to install Java. So if you're running Autopsy in Linux, you just got to make sure that you have the proper Java package for the application version. And it's going to load all the things that you need for the service. Then the next part, we're going to go ahead and pull in the image, which is your data source, by clicking this option. It's going to take a second to load. As you can see that the lower RAM you have, the slower it's going to respond, and also your processor. So we just passed the step and we are now at step 25. So coming back here, we're going to go ahead and have it also running on the outside. So on the school computer, they also have that installed. So you can definitely use it with your regular PC. You don't have to use it onto the virtual machine. It's just more of a protected way for us to use the virtual machine to be able to do that. So once it started the database, it's gonna prompt you this option. So it's gonna tell you to select the host. We are gonna use the new host name because it's a new data source that we're doing. Otherwise, you can select the other option. We're gonna go next. And it's gonna prompt you the disk image or the VM file. Usually we would use this if we created an image from a system or a virtual machine. Once in a while, we can actually pull in logical files where we're examining only the files or certain space in the disk. So we're gonna go ahead and click the first option or use the first option and go next. And then it's telling you that to browse to the image. So I'm gonna click browse and recall that I put the image file onto my desktop. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to desktop, open up the extracted folder and open that up, its subfolder, and then select the DD file. And here we want to put in the hash. The hash is provided through the image website, but if you create your own image, you can generate the hash like what we've seen in the prior lab. For realistic cases, we want to put the hash value there. And then we are gonna go ahead and click next. If you want to, you can leave all the options selected. It's gonna load all the other modules, but we're gonna only use the keyword search. So ID select all and I select the keyword search. So that way it doesn't load all the other modules. We're gonna go next. And when we do that, we're gonna go ahead and click finish. So after that, we would then, once it generate the data source for the case, we're gonna go ahead and create our word list. So it's gonna put the application components there. To use the keyword list, and in the lab, it talks about what the option of that is. So it is an ASCII string. It uses grep regular expression. So it does a filtering based on the string that you had placed into the word list. You can do it individually or you can do it as a list. So coming back here, here is my image that I loaded just now. I'm going to go ahead and click on my keyword list. And in order to create a new keyword list, you can go ahead and click manage list and then a new list. I already have a case 001, so I'm just going to name it case 0001. And we're going to add each of the keywords. Yes, you can do the keyword search one by one, but if you have a list, it's going to be more convenient where it's all in one list, one container. We're going to do an exact match, and in our lab, what I did with the revision from the time that we had a class until now is we are going to put things in the quotation mark. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. Oops. This is on the outside. We're gonna go ahead and minimize this so I can make the list. Let's pull it over here. Okay, so our first word is gonna be quotation mark or alloc. This is for the allocated space on the drive. That means that that's the use space on the drive. And we're gonna do our unalloc. This is the unallocated space. It's important that we examining there in case there's hidden files and things that we can find. And then we're gonna look at the file system. FADS. And the same thing with DADS and N. Unalloc and alloc and fragment. So fragment is files that are divided into pieces across different parts of the drive. So we want to look at those pieces as well, and how the system associate the files together is through memory addresses, or where that each of the pieces are located. So when you pull a file, it actually goes out and find different location where that file is stored, not in one piece, but multiple pieces, and together would present to you as a file. So we want to examine the fragmentation because, you know, pieces of the file might contain information that's important. So then we're gonna examine the slack space. Slack space is when a file is deleted, that space is given back to the system, but it has not been overwritten by new files. So slack space is always good to examine. And then we're gonna do NFATs for the file system. Okay. Then once we have everything inputted into our list, we're gonna click OK. And you can have more on the word list. It could be more simple term, like if you're looking for a certain name, IP address, you can have a certain type of phrase. So we want to put that into our word list. And then for this lab, we just need these, and we're going to click OK. And what we'll do is so if you want to do individual word search, you can use this option, but if you need a list, you would use this. So once you have this list selected, make sure that our options are correct, and we're gonna do a search. This will depend on how big your image is. Sometime if you have a very large storage or a system that would contain a lot of details, files, this will take hours. For example, if you're examining smartphones, or tablets, or things that would have very large storage, this can take a long time. This image is very small, so basically it's very quick, and we're only examining a certain area. So what you would see is you would see some keyword hits here. So at this point, after we search, take a screenshot, we would see the files will be located in the result here. And when you click on it, it's gonna tag the keyword that you had searched for. And it tells you the modified time, right? In 2003, unallocated space where it doesn't have any kind of access information. So we have timestamp on when the certain things were modified or changed and access. So this is important for forensic. You would be able to see the size, the allocated, the unallocated space, timestamp on when it was changed, modified, access, and these are the files here. So some of it will be also log files. So then you'll be able to answer these questions. So after we have gotten all the details from the files, we are going to go ahead and click on tools, and we're going to go into generate reports. Now we can do this in several type of reports. We can do it as HTML. And with the HTML file, we can open it up with the browser. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a data source summary report. We're going to go next, and we're going to select, make sure that we have this option select, and we're going to click finish. Now the virtual machine doesn't have Excel. What you can do is you can put it onto the USB and then have it read on the host machine on the outside. That will probably be the best. So it tells you that the file is located here. So when you click on it, right, it's gonna open that up. And for me, see how it shows this. So it tells me that 8% of the image is not analyzed, it's not able to see. And then 88% it's unknown to it. So allocated files, it found this many, unallocated this many, Slack files is this many, and directories, which are folders, this many. So altogether, it's able to see this size. So this is what you can see from the image itself, but so in order to access this, right, what you can do is you can go into your desktop. Sorry, under documents, I had saved this as a case 001. And the result for this is going to be stored inside our folder here. Go into the reports. Let me see. So we're going to go to tools. Let's generate the report. And select data source summary, click next, click finish. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you saw that on the outside, I'm able to see the Excel spreadsheet, but if you don't have Excel inside your virtual machine or your system, you can put it onto your USB drive and then try to read it in a system that has Excel. Or you can generate as an HTML where you can open it up with the browser. It doesn't have to be this type of report, but it's going to give us a little bit more graphic based on the summary. So you can generate an HTML report where it gives you a little bit more detailed report. Okay, so as it's doing that, what we can do is we can go to this location. So it's telling me it's under this location. So open here. Let's go back to our documents. Case 001. And put it under the, oops, it's still empty, it's not done. Yeah, so I have a different case that I generated. So let's see. So here is the file. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And what I'll do is I'll go back to my USB and I'm going to paste it in there. Once that's done, I'm going to unmount my USB from my virtual machine so my host computer can see it. So click on devices, USB, and then deselect. So click on my USB drive again. So I unmounted or ejected my USB from my virtual machine. Then what I'll do is I'm going to go here. And here's my Excel. So I'm on the outside computer now accessing my USB and open that up. So it's going to be similar to what I've seen on the outside because it is an image, the same image in the same application that I'm using. So it would show me the files that it examined. Now, if you, instead of doing the summary, if you're doing the HTML, it is going to give you a different type of report. This is a summarized report. So I would then generate another report by just clicking on tools. And then I can go into generate report. And here you can select this and then go next. And then, you know, check this option, make sure we check it and then go next. And then all the results. So all the files that you have there. We're gonna go ahead and click that. So with the HTML, we're able to see the detail report like this, where it shows the time zone, who's the examiner, the case information, and what kind of search or what kind of module that you use from the application and what kind of image. And then for the path, it shows the image path there. And then you can go into the keyword hits, where it shows you all the details with, the files that it found based on the keywords that we put on the list. So that allows us to see information that would be either on the summary report or on the detail report. For the user rights assignments, this is the second part to the lab, so we can go ahead and close Autopsy. And I'm gonna go ahead and close all of this because I don't need the browser. Then what we're gonna do next is we're gonna use Group Policy Editor, but before that, we have to create the user account and group that we're gonna be working with. So right-click Windows button, go to Computer Management Console. In here, we're gonna access the local system user and groups. So expand that and click on the users folder. Now I had created Jordan Wright and Samantha Flores here, but in order to make a user, you can simply right click the folder or right click somewhere here and select new user. Type in the username, full name if you like. If you have a password policy, you need to create the password for the user. If not, you would have a default password. So for example, if I want to make June Wright, I would need to do that. But for our lab, we're going to make Jordan Wright and Samantha Flores. So after you create the user this way, we're going to go ahead and create a group. So click on the group folder. We can right click the folder and then make a new group. And we're going to make a finance group, which I have done here. But you can just type in the name. And when you're doing this, you can click add. And you can choose the user. And then check name. So we can click OK. And then you do the same thing for Samantha Flores. Then you click create. So I have a group here. I have those users added to the group. Now what I can do is I can control either the user or the group. In the instruction for the lab, it shows you how to make them members and add them to the group. But in some user rights assignment, you can only control it for the group or for the user. So to assign the rights that for the privilege for the user for the system itself, you would need Group Policy Editor. And we talked about policy as rules for the system to follow or rules for the people to follow. So we're going to go ahead and search for Group Policy Editor. Or you can do GP Edit. So open up the app, and I normally pull this to the right so I could see. Because we're controlling what access level for the system, it's always going to be under computer configuration. So you're going to go ahead and expand the computer configuration under Windows settings. We've seen this before when we did password and account lockout policy. And you are going to go into security settings. And here is where you would seek local policy. That's for the system access. if you want to go back and check to see which rules have changed and access information, you can do audit policy. See how it's not auditing now. You can audit for success or fail. You can check, so you can go to security options, but for today, right, earlier we've done account policy, so for today we're going to do user rights assignments. And in the user rights assignments, it's basically the tasks that they can or they are allowed or denied on the system. So in the lab itself, it tells you to go ahead and change deny log on through remote desktop service so they cannot access. And remote desktop service is when they can use RDP or a type of application with the service to be able to connect to another system. Could be their work desktop or another computer on the network. So we're going to go ahead and deny that. And in this one, I know that I had put down finance group, but you can only deny individual user. So you can simply add, for example, if I want to deny Jordan Wright, I would just simply add his name and then check name and click OK. Now he's also added to the list along with Samantha Flores. Deny always override all the allow. So even if they're nested in another group that's allowed, it won't allow the user to have the privilege. So it always trump the allow. And that's because Microsoft applied least privilege rule. So we're going to click apply and we're going to click OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to repeat the same thing. So I need to modify this to make sure we fix this. So we're going to allow them to log on locally. So we're going to allow them to be able to access this particular computer locally. So scroll up to allow log on locally, double click this. And as you can see here are the users. So we're going to go ahead and add. Now, if you want to try to add finance group, if it can't find it, right, it's going to prompt this. So in certain rules, if you look there are ways to be, there are certain rules that we can allow groups and then certain rules that we have to add them individually as a user. So what we're going to do is we're going to add Jordan Wright and Samantha. So if you use a semicolon, it's a separator between the names. So you can just do it at once, or you can do them individually, click OK, and then add another one after that. But you can add more if needed with a semicolon there. Okay. So once we've done that, we can always check to see who's allowed there and then who's denied by double clicking that. Okay. All right. So that kind of wrap up. So at this point, we're going to take a screenshot. It's not going to be the finance group, but the policy with added users. And we need to explain how the least privilege principle is applied to the configuration rights. Remember that we always want to only allow the user for their tasks and their role and their responsibility, the least amount of privilege that they need is ideal. And if they need more for other responsibility and tasks, then we would evaluate based on the request. compared to giving them a lot of privilege and then they're not able to, that opens up security risks for us. So as today we talked about how ultimately we want to really manage the risk and mitigate the risk. So if you start small, you can control a lot of the things through the administration of your system, um, and network, so that way it doesn't generate other issues down the line. So with that, today in the lab, we learned about autopsy, how to perform forensic with the DD image, to look for a file. So we did some file carving a little bit. And then we also using keyword search, and then we also configure user rights assignments in Windows 10. And I hope that you're able to remember these practices for basic security for your local systems and also to perform basic forensic with an image. Thank you for watching the video.